Hey there, this is the Brain Set Free Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Walters. So glad that you're joining me on this adventure and journey of neuroscience and faith for the betterment of your mental well being. So excited to share things with you that I have learned and I'm continuing to learn. So, this first episode will just be a little bit of an introduction, sharing a bit about myself, what we're going to talk about, what you can expect, the resources that we have available, and just get to know each other a little bit better. So, let's just jump right into it. Again, this is an introduction to Brain Set Free, why neuroscience and faith for mental well being. First, just a little bit about myself so you know who I am. I am Ryan Walters, as I said. I can tell you that I am a survivor of anxiety disorders, specifically clinically diagnosed OCD, which is obsessive compulsive disorder, panic disorder. I know what it's like to suffer deeply, more deeply than I ever thought was even possible because of what I went through. Been on a deep and long, hard journey that has led me to this point. At one time, when I was at my lowest, things were the most difficult. I actually uprooted, moved to Nashville, Tennessee for 10 weeks, where I received intensive treatment at a facility that focused on anxiety disorders, specifically OCD and panic related stuff. 10 weeks. And I was there 5 days a week for 6 hours or so, just getting treatment. That's where my life had gotten to, how difficult things were. I was at my worst, really debilitated. I had to stop various things with work, school, even just being able to function on a just day-to-day basis became almost impossible. So I'll share more with you about my journey in later episodes and discussions. But I just want you to know that things that I share here, the lessons, the tips, the techniques that I discuss, they are things that have been applied, things that I have learned, things that I have personally used. So I know that they can work. And I'm not just telling you a bunch of stuff from book knowledge, although I do have plenty of formal education. I just can't seem to stop going to school. So I do have a PhD in a theological program from Biola University, and that's been incredible. But after I went through what I went through mentally, neuroscience became such a deep interest and even passion. Over the last years, it has just grown and I've become so fascinated with it. So that being said, I'm actually currently pursuing a second master's degree. So I'm back in school again. And this is in a degree, master's in neuroscience and trauma. So I believe it's going to fit really well with the faith component and the training and my personal experience. So I'm excited to share with you some of these things. I know, like I said, how stress, anxiety, mental distress, mental just struggle can affect a person and damage your life. Some people out there right now probably are wondering if things can ever change, if it's possible to change. You might even feel like there's no way forward. I've been there, I get it, but there's hope. It's not easy. It is incredibly difficult, but there's hope, and there's a lot of hope, and things can be better than ever before. So I'm just absolutely fascinated with the brain and how God has created our brains. It is incredible what our brains can do. And the more that I learn about it, the more that I see that it actually aligns with my faith. And it all just sort of makes so much more sense to me now. God has created these brains and created them to do absolutely amazing things. We're just scratching the surface of what we know, really, about the human brain and what it's capable of. and so many things that I can't wait to share with you that align with faith. And when you incorporate faith, it just becomes a powerful combination. So, a little bit of just an intro again, neuroscience. I keep using that term, but what is neuroscience? Just maybe if you're not familiar. Essentially, neuroscience is the study of the nervous system, okay, how it functions, but specifically the brain. So if you're talking about neuroscience, you're mostly talking about brain science, uh, specifically the brain in relation to the nervous system, how it functions, how it helps us, all of those sorts of things. So my area of focus in neuroscience, there's all sorts of fancy terms people throw around. So there's more of your medical neuroscience, people that are in there like really wanting to work on the actual structures and parts of the brain, your brain surgeons and whatnot. That ain't me. I am more in the psychological, the behavioral side of neuroscience, but specifically with faith. So almost use terms like a neurotheology. We're just exploring the neuroscience, psychology side of things with faith, how this affects mental health and so on. So it's really just an intersection of faith and neuroscience. And I'm absolutely fascinated by that. Can't wait to share with you some things. Just looking here, what else I wanted to tell you in this intro. So why should you care about this? Why should this matter to you? And to be honest, at one point in my life, I didn't care. I've kind of gone through various seasons. At one point, I was probably more just on the science side of things. Faith, I don't know, wasn't super practical or transformational for me. And so I just sort of relied on medicine and science and what doctors said and so on and so forth. Later on in life, when I grew more in my faith and got more excited about my faith, I sort of went to the other end of things. And I was almost in a place of being almost entirely faith. I sort of had this view that I should be able to pray through anything and pray off anything and it should go away. And although I do very much believe that God can work miracles, and he does work miracles, and he can heal you in an instant, and I've seen God do absolute miracles. So I'm open to that. However, I'm also seeing and coming to learn that more and more I really believe that mental health healing is going to be more of a journey and a process. And I believe that a big part of that is because in the process is where you really learn about who you are, about who God is and how he's made you. That journey, the process, you can't skip it. If you did, you would miss out on so many lessons. And I've had to learn that at first when I was really low and really struggling. I just wanted out. I just wanted God to zap me and make me better. And I had to come to terms eventually with, okay, he could, but I don't think he's going to. He's got a different path for me. And now looking back, I'm thankful because it's led me to here. I'm in a place I wouldn't have thought I would have been, sharing with you about how neuroscience and faith can be absolutely transformational to your life. So why you should care, neuroscience is showing us the capabilities of our brains. Change in your brain can happen. Your nervous system can be changed. You can heal and move forward from trauma. Your brain can physiologically be altered and changed for good or not so good. Our brains are what we call plastic. Neuroplasticity is this process of your brain physiologically changing. So you'll hear terms like brain rewiring. That's just another term for neuroplasticity. And the fact that we're learning just so much. In fact, I heard a neuroscientist recently say that in probably the last 20 years, what we have learned about the brain and what it can do and its ability to change and transform, learn more in like the last 20 years than maybe the previous 100 combined. I mean, so it's an exciting time. And there's a lot to learn. When we talk about brain change, your brain can create new neural pathways Your brain can develop unhealthy neural pathways too for fear and stress response and panic and all these things. But those can be altered and changed with work and intentionality to healthier pathways where your foundation becomes much more a place of peace and trust and resilience and responding differently to stressors. So we'll get into all of those sorts of things, but I just know and believe there's so many practices and tools that can help you if you're in a place where you're really struggling. Brain rewiring, how is that biblical? Well, neuroplasticity or brain rewiring, if you put it into scriptural terms, it's essentially what scripture calls renewing your mind. So as you renew your mind, your brain is also changing, altering, being renewed, if you will. So there's a scripture that I really like in regards to neuroscience and how it relates to faith. Philippians 4, verse 8, I'll just read that. If you're probably familiar. If not, here it is. It says, fix your thoughts on what is true, honorable, and right, what is pure and lovely and admirable. Think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. Now, I've always seen that as a nice verse, but I probably used to view it more as just good advice. Like, yeah, sure, it's the good thing to do. It's the right thing to do. Sure, to think on those things that are pure and lovely and so on. That's a good thing to do. But it is so much more than that. And the more I learn about neuroscience and my faith, the more I'm learning that our faith is so much more than just right and wrong. It's about healthy and unhealthy. And even this verse, fix your thoughts on what is true and lovely. That's a perfect scripture to, for example, encourage the practice of positive visualization, which is a very important practice in brain rewiring. It's one that we'll get into and I'll demonstrate for you at some point even. But as you do positive visualization, you are fixing your mind on things that are beautiful and wonderful and that you enjoy, and you're using your senses to do so, and you're imagining yourself even with God, at some beautiful beach, or the scenarios are endless. But as you do these positive visualizations, you're fixing your mind on these things. And it's not because it's just good to do, it's because it is transformational in what it does to your brain and how it begins to change pathways, how it begins to calm stress response, how it begins to release neurotransmitters, which are just chemicals that affect how you feel, release neurotransmitters like dopamine, which is a good one that you want. You want to feel good. So I'm not going to get super into depth on that now, but just an example so you have an idea of the types of things that we're going to talk about and discuss that have helped me so much, and I know and really believe can help you. So there are various people, such as one of my favorites is, if you're familiar with neuroscience, you might know the name Dr. Carolyn Leaf. She's kind of a pioneer in this field of neuroscience and faith. She's a Christian, and she has done numerous studies and research processes on the brain where they've actually done physical scans. There's various machines out there that they use now for brain scans and to understanding what goes on in the brain. There's one called an fMRI machine that essentially uh, looks at blood flow and activity in various parts of the brain. So when you're doing certain activities, it shows what parts of the brains are being activated and used and so on, and that can help us understand what's beneficial, what's not. So she'll do studies where people are incorporating their prayer and meditation, exercise, all these various things, and then showing how it affects the brain. And over time, they're seeing some really cool stuff. So she's explored things like, does toxic thinking, when you get stuck in these toxic patterns of thinking, does it cause harm to your brain, to your body, to your emotions? Then on the flip side, she's examined things like, can healthy thinking and practices like I've mentioned, some of meditation and prayer, exercise, mindfulness, even diet, um, even some hobbies and things like focusing on valued activities. Can these types of practices and thinking then encourage healing and emotional well-being and change? And the answer is a resounding yes, they can. And so there's processes, there's things we can do to encourage those things. For some people, that may even mean some more intensive work. So I've also got a program that I'm certified to coach in, a brain rewiring program that's a much more intensive program for people that are really struggling with their mental health and their chronic stress and anxiety, and they're just sort of stuck in that stress response, which so many of us get stuck in, and we're not intended to. I'll talk about in a later session about anxiety, that anxiety in and of itself is not a bad thing, but it becomes a bad thing when we get stuck in it and we're there too long and too often and so on. So I will have a program to coach people through more intensive training if they want that, because you really need to implement these practices and daily routines consistently if you want to see some real change. If you kind of do it casually, you're going to get pretty limited results. And so we'll talk about those sorts of things. The truth is, the way I think about it, you have been handed, like, God has given you the keys to something incredible. I mean, the most complex and powerful structure in the universe. Your brain has 100 billion plus neurons. And we'll talk about even neurons, but neurons are specialized cells that communicate with each other, with parts of your brain and body, and that are there to serve you, to function well, to survive, so on. It's just absolutely amazing what your brain can do. And your brain, we're finding, has the incredible ability, as I said, to change, to for self recovery. It's amazing. You are not set. Your brain is not set. So the name brain set free. Your brain can be changed. It is not set. Your way of thinking is not set. Those things can be altered and changed and so on and so forth. You don't have to stay stuck where you are. So the goal is to show you that neuroscience and faith are compatible. I know for so many of us, you can get a little bit triggered maybe when we start talking about science or these types of things that you're not sure if they go along with your faith or not. But I just want to normalize some of this and show you that there can be such a powerful relationship between neuroscience and faith, and so many practices that can be helpful and that have helped me. So some of these practices, like I mentioned, things like mindfulness, breath work, visualization, prayer, writing, socializing, exercise, can be so valuable if you will intentionally and consistently engage with them. And I will work with you through some of these things, teach you, demonstrate some of these practices, teach you the science behind them, how the faith incorporates. There's a scripture, or numerous scriptures, where Jesus would say to someone who had just been healed, your faith has made you well. Now, in those instances, I recognize that there were some immediate healings going on, but it's still interesting that Jesus would say, your faith has made you well. And again, we're finding more and more that the involvement of faith in your mental life and in your healing encourages healing in some really profound ways. Um, so I don't think that was a statement Jesus was just nonchalantly making. I truly believe that your faith, sure, maybe in an instant, God heals you, but your faith consistently and continually, and as you engage in some of these practices, can really be a part of making you well. And there's science that's even showing it. So what's going to be offered here, I'm just going to provide in the coming days and weeks more teaching and resources, what the science is showing, how that aligns with our faith, and how all of it goes together and how you can really begin to change your life. I'll have some written resources. I hope to have community access where people can interact with each other. We can talk about these things. And again, I'll have the rewiring program up very soon. And that'll be something you can be a part of that will have community. It'll have interaction and coaching sessions with me and a very step-by-step daily guided process to help you see change. It takes time and it takes work. I'm not going to promise you that if you have mental health issues and struggles that it's going to change overnight. It's probably not. You didn't get in that situation overnight. Usually years of hurt and trauma and negative thinking has gotten us into these places. And so we got to work through them and develop new habits, new routines, and our brain will adjust and then our bodies will begin to adjust. We can begin to feel better, be more resilient, and become the person that you really want to become. So going to just wrap this one up. I want to try to keep these 20 minutes or so or less. I don't want to just ramble on. I know our attention spans these days are very limited. Mine are. I get on and just watch the quick reels. And so I'm going to try to keep these short, but I just want you to know that wherever you are in life, no matter how dark that it seems, no matter how low, no matter how impossible it feels, and I do get it. I promise you I get it. I've been in the lowest point imaginable, a place that I didn't even know there was such suffering mentally possible, a place where I thought at one point for sure that there was no way I could get better, that I could heal, just thinking that I was too far gone. But I know that even if you're in that place, there's hope. God has given you this brain that can change. It can be renewed. Your mind can be renewed, which will affect your entire body, your entire being. Okay, you can be rewired to those things like goodness, joy, and peace, the fruits of the Spirit that we talk about, things that you are made for. You can move forward. You don't have to stay stuck. You can experience greater healing and freedom with the work and making the effort to do it. You are made to reign and rule with God. And these things can really help you in the process. So thank you for joining.